What's going on, y'all? Welcome back to the Straight Packs YouTube channel. I'm Kyle Syrek with our NFL draft expert, Matt Valdovinos. If you've been catching, this will be the 6th video in our little draft big board, getting you guys ready for Thursday. Well, really Thursday, Friday, and Saturday, because it's going to be a stacked weekend for the NFL fans. We hit the offense. Go check those out. We hit the edge rushers. Go check this one out. And now we're going to hit the cornerbacks. The cornerbacks, Matt V. And there's some guys at the top and there's some guys in the middle that I personally am high on. Probably you're high on some and you're probably low on some. So I got to hear where we're at with cornerback. How you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm excited to talk about, the people's position. Everyone loves a cornerback. I feel like it's just so much fun to watch those dogs, especially the elite ones. It's such a difficult position to play. So it's such a high-end skill gap of talent. And that's why, you notice when you have a great one and you notice when you don't have a good one. So really excited. I think this is a really, really good class. I have 6 first-round grades in this class. These top 6 are all guys that I think could have been CB1 in a couple of the recent classes. Not necessarily last year just because Pat Surtain was so good, but I think all of these guys have a really, really good chance to be productive, to be effective, and to be really some nasty, dynamic, shutdown cornerbacks. Right. One person that I do want to mention off of this list that a lot of people love, who does not make my top 6, is Washington's Kyler Gordon. I think there's a lot to work on there. I think he projects as a nickel in the, at the next level, which isn't necessarily a bad thing because the nickel's a starter at this point. But I just don't think his athletic traits are as good as some people have him up to be. And I also just don't think he's as progressed in his development as he needs to be an effective starter right away.
All right. I like that. Making your stand early. And that's really, I feel like he is a fringe round 1, round 2 guy. So
yeah, for
people
sure.
won't be mad at that. And maybe you'll just piss off the people that are really high on Kyler Gordon.
We'll see. And we'll see where he goes, right? Like that might matter what team takes him and whatnot, but not making my first round grades and doesn't make my top 6.
All right. Well, let's hear about those first round grades, Matt. Let's hop right into number 6.
Well, number 6 is actually going to be his teammate, Trent Mcduffie. Some people really, really like Mcduffie. I've seen him as high as CB2. I don't think I've seen anyone with him as CB1, at least not a draft analyst. But there's a pretty high range for him. I have him here at CB6. I worry about some of the length in his frame, but I think he's very, very far along in his development path. Nuance is both an inside and outside corner, willing tackler. Plays the top of routes really well, is patient, never seems to be in distress, more than adequate speed and athletic ability. I don't have any concerns on that part. I think he's got a really, really high floor, and his athletic ability, maybe he does have a high ceiling, and maybe he can just be sticky enough onto elite NFL players. But I think when he gets against some of the top wide receiver ones, especially some of the bigger guys, they're going to give him some problems. And I don't necessarily know that he for sure can keep up with Tyreek Hill and the elite deep threats in the league, but we will see. We'll see if he can at least hold his own, which is what you need to do as one of the top corners. And I think he has that ability. I think he could be a CB1, but maybe a long term he would be a really, really talented CB2.
Right. And I think McDuffie is not a burner, not an all elite burner guy, not a ball hawk, but maybe one of the smartest corners in this draft. And that's something I personally value at the position because, quarterback's the one where if you're, lacking, you're going to get burnt and it's going to show. Maybe more than any other position. So I like that. Definitely a sure round 1 guy for me as well. So you having him at 6 and having him as first rounder fits pretty much right where I think about him.
And then, and the other thing with him as well is there's a lack of ball production and interceptions, and that concerns me just a little bit as well. I think he only has 2 career picks, but very talented player overall, but just comes in at number 6, still first round talent. I think like 24th overall on my board.
Right, and I'm not putting too much stocks in the picks after we saw what corner led the league in picks last season in the NFL. But we'll move to number 5, Matt. I want to hear who you got here at 5.
Yeah, number 5 is Roger Mccreary out of Auburn. This is someone I really, really love. Going to stand on the table for. I know some guys whose opinions I really respect love him as well. Has that dog, has that, alpha apex mentality as the top dog in the secondary, wants to be the number 1, wants to take on the biggest assignment, wants to go make a play in the run game. Great production with 38 career pass deflections, led the SEC with 16 this past year, and then also had 6 interceptions in his career. 1 was a pick 6. I think you get a dude who knows what he's doing. He's not super long. His frame isn't ideal, but he's an aggressive tackler, so he's more than willing to come and make plays behind the line of scrimmage. He's twitched up. He's fluid. He stops and starts with receivers with the best of them. I think his eyes are incredible. He's constantly keeping eye contact between the quarterback and between the receiver, back and forth, so he knows where the ball is at all times, and that leads to spatial awareness, and that's why he gets his hand on the ball so often and so easy to make a play when they're trying to get the ball down to the receiver, whatever receiver he's on. I think Roger Mccreary has that opportunity to become like a true CB1 just because he has that mentality. You see it on the field. You see him, it annoys him to not be the best. Like you can get that vibe from him. And I think that's really going to play into his career. And I think guys like that tend to find success in the league. Yeah,
really across all sports, the guys that even if it's overreach and confidence to where they really should be confident, that definitely can up your play, especially in a sport like football. It might be the one to do it. I think McCreary is a good thing to look at this position as a whole, though, a good spot, because like you said, probably like one of the smallest guys of these top guys. So really has to rely on other things to make him this elite prospect. So I want to just know overall, how do you look at the cornerback position, and what are the things you really value, and what are some things you don't put as much stock into when evaluating these prospects?
Yeah, I think the most important thing is to just be a fluid athlete. When I was first becoming a scout, I was like, length, ball skills, being able to disrupt the play when the ball's in the air. That's important, right? That was when the Legion of Boom was dominating. I thought a 6'2", 6'3" receiver with solid straight line speed was good enough. But I realized that only works with certain defenses, right? What really is the most important thing is just the ability to stick with a receiver at any point on any route, right? The ability to stay hip to hip. And that comes down to hip fluidity, athletic ability. I do think length comes into play. There's thresholds where, if you're 5'9" with 69, 70 inch arms, you're going to have difficult time contesting balls at the catch point. So I think that's what I'm really looking for, the fluid hips and the ability to just stop and start and stay with your man. And then also what really attracts me to a lot of corners is that alpha mentality that, because I think that's, especially with the cornerback position, like you said, is the most important, especially having to cover these receivers, these divas, these big personalities, the guys that get paid a lot of money, the guys that everyone wants to be and have their jersey, and the cornerback's job is to shut them off, especially the number one target. Like, these guys get excited about that opportunity. I think that's really important as well, because iron sharpens iron, and that's going to guarantee that person to want to get better.
Yep. I think that's well said. I want a little dive into your mind there, Matt, because I think this position, especially the defensive positions, now that we've moved to the defensive side of the ball, are a lot harder to judge. Play to play, like you're only really on that guy if he gets a sack or gets an interception, or if he gets burnt, right? So I think that was a good insight into the corner position. Let's move to number 4. Who is going to be your number 4 prospect?
Number 4 is going to be Kaiir Elam out of Florida. The best physical toolkit of any of these cornerbacks, I think, maybe of the entire class, but definitely of these top guys. 6'1", 195, 200 pounds, 4'3", 5 athlete, long arms, good ball skills, aggressive run defender. I think Kaiir Elam is the least talked about of the top cornerbacks for whatever reason, despite having potentially the highest ceiling besides Derek Stingley. And so I think you look at everything he has, the physical tools, his time in the SEC playing as a starting cornerback for like 2 years. You get a lot from this prospect. He might be there in the second round, which is kind of absurd to me. I think he's a guy that you could take 15th, 16th, and you can plug him in. He's going to give you competitive reps as a rookie and is going to develop into a really, really talented quarterback.
Yeah, I like these big corners, man. I'm not going to lie. Dominique Camardi was one of my probably favorite corners of the last 10 to 15 years. And guys like this who also pair that with speed. I mean, when you talk about Kaiir, a lot of speed here at the corner position. I think this is obviously top prospect first round guy, but I think this is a guy we could look at, 5 years from now, who's really a staple of an NFL defense and an NFL secondary. So I'm really high on him, just like you are on this guy.
Yeah, and I think you're getting into these top 4. I think Mccreary and McDuffie are kind of held back by their size. Maybe Mccreary a little bit by some athletic problems, but I think both of them lack the length. These next 4 guys pair the requisite athletic ability with the frame to be, an alpha true CB1 at the next level. Yeah. All right. Well, let's move on. Are we? We're at 3, correct? We're at 3, right? And we all know that it's a 2-horse race. So for me, it was a 2-horse race, to be honest. Yes. In terms of CB1. So Andrew Booth out of Clemson is my CB3 in this class. Interesting. Very, very kind of like Kaiir Elam in terms of just a little watered down in terms of like the physical tools, maybe an inch shorter arms, and maybe just a tick slower. But the flashes on the tape are jaw-dropping, are absurd, all pro. If he can, string those together just a little bit more consistently, we're talking about, maybe the best cornerback in the league. Andrew Booth at Clemson displayed some pretty absurd tools in his arsenal. The ball skills are there. The leaping ability is there. The click and close, everything shows up on tape. Every great tool that you could need to be a cornerback shows up on tape. There's some stuff, obviously rookie cornerback, difficult position to play. There's stuff he's got to clean up and got to warm up specifically, anticipating what receivers are going to do when they get to him at the point of the count. He's kind of just waiting and reacting. Sometimes you have to be able to predict, get into that film study, get into that, just that ability to that instinct to try and figure out what's going to happen. And if you get burnt, you're an elite athlete, so you should be able to, if you make the wrong decision, the idea is that you can turn around and explode and cover ground and make up for that. But other than that, right, I think you see a lot of traits similar to Kyrie Elam, that you're just going to get a really, really talented, high-end level cornerback prospect with a decent floor and an amazing ceiling.
Yeah, interesting. I'm not into a huge film guy like you are. It sounds like, every scout, any guy that's like a real film grinder in the NFL has a tendency to here and there, fall in love with a guy. And, not necessarily that you're taking a stand on Andrew Booth, but I think you have him a lot higher than a lot of other people do. So we're going to see about this one, Matt. We're going to see, because I think Kyrie Elam would clearly be like just a step ahead. Even if you flip to 3 and 4, I think it's easier to have Elam ahead than you do Booth.
Maybe, but I think we'll see Booth probably be a top 20 pick. Like, we can see the Eagles take Booth at 15. I think that's pretty likely, and I think the NFL is going to take Booth first. I think the consensus is kind of that these are the top 4. I think McDuffie being at 6 is the big hot take for this class.
I feel like he was a top 4 guy.
Yeah, he's like a consensus top 4. He's kind of the consensus CB3, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, he's my big one. I think Booth, him and Kyer, I have not as high as Stingley and Gardner, but I think they're both similar in terms of Elam and Booth and where I would take them in the draft, which is that like late teens. All
right. Well, top 2, like you were saying, it's really a consensus top 2. I think a lot of people see that between Stingley and Sauce Gardner. I got to hear what order you got him in, though, Matt. So we'll start with the lower of the 2. Let's get to number 2.
And I love both of these guys. There's no question that I love both of these guys. I've been very high on these guys for a long time. And if I did fall in love with one, it's going to be the dude who, with any of these corners, it's the dude who I have at number 1. But at number 2, Sauce Gardner out of Cincinnati.
Okay. One
of the most impressive, productive resumes of all time. I think I have the number up. We all know he gave up 0 touchdown passes in a total of 1,103 pass coverage attempts. In just an absurd cornerback prospect, solid size, 6'2.5", 195 pounds, long arms, tested better than a lot of people expected him to. I never had real concerns about his athletic ability, his ability to carry with great athletes. And I thought against Alabama, he showed that against Jameson Williams. And also silenced a lot of people who said that, oh, he's in the AAC, he's not competing or whatever. No, this dude has played a lot of NFL receivers in his career. And people want to say, oh, well, he's not that elite athlete. Well, people are telling me that Jameson Williams is the best deep threat in years. So I saw him have a pretty good game in a number of reps against him. I think Sauce is as high a floor cornerback as I've ever seen in my career as a scout. I think at minimum, you're getting a dude who's probably like a Pro Bowl level player, a dude who's going to be at worst a low end to mid-tier CB1, and at best, and that's just out of the gate, right? So I think you're really getting just a complete player, a guy who can fit into really any scheme you need him to, but would prefer him to be in an off man or off zone, let him read and react, be instinctive, and make plays. He's very intelligent, burst close. He's willing to make a hit. He's got good ball skills. He's got long arms. Just, there's not enough good things to say about how talented this dude is and how good he is and why his career was so successful at Cincinnati. I think we could see him go as high as 4. And I doubt we see him fall out of the top 10, right? So this is a superstar cornerback prospect. The best we've seen besides, him and Stingley are the 2 best cornerback prospects we've had in a couple years.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think they're both top 10 solidified, to be honest. If one of those guys falls out, something went wrong. But I actually haven't flip-flopped. And the reason is, the reason I have Sauce number one is that exact stat that you threw out. Didn't allow a touchdown in over 1,000 coverage attempts. And you could, put the narrative, he's not facing players because he's in Cincinnati, blah, blah, blah.
Mhm.
I don't care. I'm a statistics major. I'm a stats guy. That is a large enough sample size for me that you can throw out anything, any small, athletic number, any, talent against number. You could throw that out the window. This man didn't give up a single touchdown. That's all I needed to hear. And then you just look at him and do watch him play, and it just piles onto that point of how good he really is. But I'm not mad at you for putting Stingley one, but I do want to hear now why you have Stingley at one.
Yeah, I think when you watch, especially the freshman tape, the traits to man up and just stick anyone, they're very reminiscent of Jalen Ramsey. I think Stingley gives you that upside. I think that is in the realm of possibility, and I don't think anyone else in the class rivals that, to be honest. I think you are drafting a player who gives you a shot at having the best cornerback in the league at some point in his career. And to me, if that's available, I think you just have to do it. And to me, that's what makes the most sense to me. I think he's a little bit more scheme diverse than Sauce because I think he's a better athlete. Competed at or tested at his pro day coming off of the injury, tested phenomenally, 4.4, 1.56, 10 yard, 38-inch vert, and a 10.2 broad jump. Just a really, really gifted athlete. All of the tools, especially on the lower body, the click and close, the hip flexibility or the hip fluidity, the ability to just turn around, stick, man up, especially in, press man, put him on the opposing wide receiver's best guy and let him work.
All right.
And he has to stay on the field. We know this. It's the injuries. That's the big thing. And especially with the injuries, it deteriorated the play a little bit. But if he can get healthy, get on the field, stay on the field, you've got a chance at the best cornerback in the league.
Yeah. And you talk about that freshman year. True freshman. 18 years old. Nonetheless.
Sticking players like
SEC
Devontae
football.
Smith and Jerry Jeudy. Yeah.
Yeah, one of the most impressive.
Henry Ruggs.
Yeah, ridiculous. Yeah, and that's a great point. Yeah, it comes down to the injuries with Derek Stingley. I think both of these guys are going to have tremendous NFL careers nonetheless. Before we get out of here, Matt, I think last year we weren't too surprised to see Carolina and Denver take cornerbacks. Maybe a little surprised to see J.C. Horn be the first one off the board and not Patrick Surtain. What teams are we really keying in on this season looking at cornerback in this draft?
So I've been told that the Giants are interested in the top 10 with both their 4th and 7th pick if they don't move out of it. That doesn't necessarily mean they will, right? They might have a higher ranked player that falls to them. But I also think that we'll see probably Seattle is there. And then after that, if either of these players make it out of the top 10 just because of player need, I think you see any of Houston at 13, maybe even Minnesota at 12, or Baltimore at 14. It's not happening past those 3 picks.
All right. Yeah, well, that works for me. I was actually surprised the Giants didn't go. Well, I guess they couldn't go corner last year, but that's why they traded back. In my mind, was that they just saw J.C. Horn and Surtain go right off the board before their pick.
Cowboys too.
Yeah. So that is it for this episode. Make sure you guys go check out the previous ones. I mean, we're hyped for Thursday. I know Matt's super hyped for Thursday.
Cannot wait.
Tune in to at MV Scouting on Twitter. He's going to be live tweeting the whole draft, I'm sure. Hot takes here and there, hot trades here and there. It's going to be flying. But I'm Kyle Syrek. This is Matt Valdovinos, and these have been the facts.